This is our transmission for the project. It's an Aisin Warner 0372 transmission. It's mostly used for the Toyota series, but it's also been used by Isuzu, Volvo, and Mitsubishi. It has different names. It comes under different names. For Toyota, it's the A40 series. For Volvo, it's the BW55, and then it's also called an AW70 or 71 and 72 transmission. It's mostly made for rear-wheel drive cars. So Toyota, they use it for the Celica, the Corona, Cressida, the Toyota Supra, the Previa, pickup trucks, the Tacoma, a 4Runner, and vans. Volvo used it for the 240 series, with the 240 with the turbo, the 260 series, 740 series, 740 with the turbo, 760 and 780 series. Also the 940 with and without the turbo. It's also used in the Geo Tracker. It's usually used it for their Amigo, Impulse, Pickup, and Sportage. That was for Kia, I'm sorry. Mazda used it for the Miata. Mitsubishi used it for the Montero, Pickup, and van. Let's see what else. This is the whole thing gutted. Oh, one thing. It was made like around the early 70s. That's when they first introduced it, and it went to the latest to 2005. That was the last time it was used, which was used in the Mazda Miata. This is the whole assembly of it. This is all the moving parts of the transmission. This is the input shaft and the output shaft. This is just the overdrive case. That doesn't really have a purpose, just to hold these together. And here is the overdrive drum. Let me just take it apart. And the overdrive clutch pack's in there. That's the planetary set. This is the overdrive direct clutch pack, or it's also called the overdrive brakes. It's all splinted into this. Then it goes into the forward drum, and the forward clutch pack is in there. And then this is the direct drum, and the direct clutch pack is in there. This is also like to be called a rear drum or a rear clutch pack from different manufacturers. They're all splinted together and held, and then here comes the center support, which is held all of them. This is called the coast clutch pack, which is the first one right here. It's also called brake number 1 from certain manufacturers. This is the intermediate clutch pack, which is these right here, also called brake number 2. This right here is the lower reverse clutch pack, which is supposed to go right here. We took it apart. It's also called brake number 3. And then there's 2 planetary sets. One, which you can see right here. There's one right there, and then the second one is inside, which you can't see. And they're all splinted together, and then all held into the output shaft. And this is the casing for the brakes, which basically goes right here, and that's the brakes right for the lower reverse clutch packs. Alright, this is a cutout view of our transmission. This manual gives us different names for each part. See how they go by numbers and letters. C0, B0, F0, the planetary gear, C1, C2, B1, B2, B3, F1, F2, the front planetary gear and the rear planetary gear. Here, C0 is the overdrive clutch, C1 is the forward clutch, C2 is the direct clutch, B0 is the overdrive brake, B1 is the brake number 1, B2 is brake number 2, B3 is brake number 3. F0 is the overdrive one-way clutch, F1 is the one-way clutch number 1, and F2 is the one-way clutch number 2. So that's all the numbers and letters, and here it is in actuality. So I'll show you the application chart, because they use these numbers and letters right here, which might get a little bit confusing for the moment, but I'll try to do my best to explain everything.
Alright, in our transmission, when you put the shift lever into drive and you enter first gear, what happens is the clutch up here, the overdrive clutch, and another one-way clutch are applied, which causes the sun gear that is in here and this carrier to spin as one unit. And then you also apply the forward clutch, also known as C1. What that does is it sends power down to this rear planetary carrier and causes it to rotate with the rest of the stuff. Now that causes this rear sun gear to want to spin in the opposite direction. Now, the sun gear is attached to the forward planetary carrier, so that carrier wants to spin in the opposite direction. A one-way clutch, however, prevents the carrier from spinning in the opposite direction. So what happens is it ends up spinning with the rest of it, and you get a first gear ratio of a little over 2.8 to 1. Now, when you put the shift lever into manual low, it actually activates these clutches, which acts as brake number 3 and prevents the forward planetary carrier from moving. And what that does is it actually provides engine braking, as it allows the internals to spin a little bit in the opposite direction. Alright, if the shift lever is in drive and you enter second gear, it's a lot like first gear, where the overdrive clutch and the one-way clutch up here are still applied. They're still doing the same thing, and you still have C1 or the forward clutch activated. The difference is you activate this right here. This is brake number 2, and you activate that, which causes the rear planetary carrier, the gears inside, to start spinning, and that causes the rear sun gear to once again want to spin in the opposite direction. But because there's a one-way clutch in brake number 2, it prevents that. So you get no backward spinning, no engine braking, and you end up with a gear ratio out of the output shaft of about 1.5 to 1. Now, if you put it into manual second, alright, now if your shift lever is still in drive and your overdrive on-off switch is on, and you enter fourth gear, what happens is the overdrive clutch in here that's been on for every other gear is actually shut off. And what you do instead is you activate this, which is the overdrive brake. And now what that does is it causes the sun gear in here to actually not move anymore, and that causes the planetary carrier to start moving. And what you end up with is you end up with a overdrive gear ratio of about 0.7 to 1. Everything else is still going. Both of these clutches are still applied. This brake is still applied. You just get better mileage due to the low gear ratio. Alright, now if your shift lever is still in drive and your overdrive on-off switch is on, and you enter fourth gear, what happens is the overdrive clutch in here that's been on for every other gear is actually shut off. And what you do instead is you activate this, which is the overdrive brake. And now what that does is it causes the sun gear in here to actually not move anymore, and that causes the planetary carrier to start moving. And what you end up with is you end up with a overdrive gear ratio of about 0.7 to 1. Everything else is still going. Both of these clutches are still applied. This brake is still applied. You just get better mileage due to the low gear ratio. Now, in our transmission, if you put the shift lever into reverse, what happens is the overdrive clutch is applied like in all other gears except for fourth, but instead of the C1, the forward clutch being applied, you actually apply the C2, the direct clutch. In addition, you activate the third brake, which was this, that keeps the forward planetary carrier from moving. And in manual low, that allowed some backwards rotation of the sun gear, which caused some engine braking. In reverse, it actually allows the output shaft itself to spin backwards, giving you reverse gear and giving you a gear ratio of about 2.7 to 1.